It's kind of funny how our brains
Yeah.
process value. Like, just imagine you're walking down a street in a new city, looking for dinner, and you see two restaurants.
Right.
One has a line completely out the door, people craning their necks to see the menu, and the other is just, well, completely empty. Not a single soul inside, just a waiter sort of staring blankly out the window.
I feel like we've all been there.
Yeah, and before you've even seen the food or smelled the kitchen or looked at a price tag, your brain has already made a decision. You just assume the busy place is incredible and, there has to be a very good reason the empty place is abandoned.
Well, absolutely. It's fundamental social proof. We constantly rely on the behavior of the crowd to inform our own sense of value, and that's true whether we're choosing a restaurant or, evaluating a massive financial asset.
Exactly. And today on the deep dive, we are taking that exact psychological quirk and applying it to, well, one of the biggest financial transactions of a person's life. We're exploring this really counterintuitive idea that when a house sits on the market and just will not sell, it is almost never the house's fault.
Right. The brick, the mortar, the neighborhood, those are usually perfectly fine. The actual problem is the strategy.
Which is a remarkably tough pill to swallow for anyone who has ever tried to sell a home and just watched it languish on the market for months on end.
It really is. I mean, it's so much easier to blame the market or, the interest rates rather than your actual approach.
So to figure out what is really going on behind the scenes of a failed listing, we are digging into a fascinating stack of internal sources today. We've got these highly specialized real estate documents, so sales brochures, agent guides, marketing blueprints.
Lots of really detailed stuff.
Yeah, and it's all from a platform called Seller's Reserve. This entire system was architected by Michael Mahan, a CEO with over 21 years of experience and more than 2,000 property sales under his belt.
And managing that kind of volume, I mean, it gives you a very clear, very ruthless view of human behavior in a marketplace. You stop seeing isolated transactions and you really start seeing predictable behavioral loops.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack those loops. We're going to figure out why traditional real estate listings go stale and decode this highly specific 16-day auction strategy that Seller's Reserve uses to manufacture urgency.
And essentially rescue failed listings, yeah. It completely shifts how buyers perceive value.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the cure, we really first have to diagnose the disease. Why exactly does an unsold house become like a toxic asset in the minds of buyers?
Well, the internal documents use a phrase that gets straight to the heart of this pathology. Time kills price.
Time kills price.
Exactly. It's an absolute law of real estate that often just gets ignored by optimistic sellers. According to the analytics they've gathered, buyer interest naturally peaks within the very first 2 to 3 weeks.
So that 0 to 30-day window.
Right. That's your golden hour. You have maximum attention, and buyers have, premium expectations.
But once you cross that 30-day threshold, a shift happens. The sources point out that between 30 and 90 days, the perceived value of that home starts to erode. And it erodes much faster than the actual asking price does.
It really does.
And by the time a property has been sitting for over 90 days, the listing itself becomes the story rather than the property.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture of how information travels today, it makes perfect sense. Buyers have complete visibility. They can see exactly how many days a property has been active on an app.
Oh, yeah. It reminds me of how algorithms handle a social media post.
How so?
Well, if you post a genuinely great video, but for whatever reason it gets 0 likes or comments in the first hour, the algorithm assumes it's terrible and just buries it.
Ah, right.
And then the people who finally do stumble across it see the low view count and immediately assume the content isn't worth their time. The video itself hasn't changed at all, right? The quality is exactly the same as when it was uploaded.
But the perceived value is dead.
Exactly, because the environment signaled that nobody else wanted it.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The silence around the asset basically becomes the dominant narrative. And buyers, being naturally risk-averse, they fill that silence with their own doubts.
Right.
They wonder if, the inspection turned up foundation issues or if the sellers are hiding something.
So if you are a seller in that position and the market is just completely ignoring you, the most common knee-jerk reaction is to drop the price. You assume making it cheaper will solve the problem.
Which is what everyone does.
Right, but reading through these agent guides, you realize that price reductions are essentially self-sabotage. You're just putting blood in the water.
Dropping the price sends a very clear, very dangerous message to the market. It actively signals that the listing agent has zero buyer interest. It's basically a public admission of defeat.
And once you start making those cuts, you rarely stop at just one. A $50,000 cut here, a $20,000 cut there.
Yeah, you train the market to wait you out.
Exactly. You end up attracting bargain hunters who are looking to lowball you, while actively deterring the genuine emotional buyers who actually want a premium home.
Because the buyers are no longer asking, why hasn't this incredible home sold? They immediately shift to assuming something must be fundamentally wrong with it. Let's just see how low they will go.
Which brings us to a structural flaw in traditional real estate. The mere presence of an asking price sets a ticking clock. The moment you publish a number, that days on market counter starts and the decay begins. So if dropping the price only accelerates the death of the listing, and having an asking price is what starts the ticking clock in the first place, you really have to rethink the entire architecture of the sale.
Which is a huge paradigm shift.
Yeah, and this is the part of the seller's reserve philosophy that completely flips the script. They argue that having an asking price is inherently risky. You basically set yourself up for two bad outcomes.
Right.
Option A, you underprice the home, it sells in 3 days, everyone is popping champagne, but you've left a massive amount of money on the table.
And option B, you overprice it. The market rejects it, and boom, you are stuck in that trap of time we just diagnosed. The listing grows stale, and you end up discounting it anyway. The traditional model relies entirely on guessing the exact right number in a shifting market, which is nearly impossible.
So what's the alternative?
Well, the alternative seller's reserve proposes is what they call an attraction-based campaign. And the foundational principle of this campaign is launching the property without an asking price at all.
Okay, if you are listening to this and you own a home, the idea of removing the price tag from your most valuable asset probably makes your stomach drop.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds incredibly exposed.
Right.
But it feels counterintuitive only until you analyze the psychology of a buyer. When a potential buyer looks at a property listing with a price tag, what's the very first thing they do?
They open up a portal and compare it to every other house in that exact price bracket.
Exactly. They stop looking at the house and start looking at a spreadsheet. They make these lazy, immediate value comparisons based purely on a number.
Like, well, this one is $1 million, but the one down the street is $900,000 and has an extra bathroom.
Right. They become totally detached from the actual emotional value of the architecture or the location. By removing the price, you completely eliminate the buyer's ability to make those lazy comparisons.
Oh, I see.
You force the buyer to engage directly with the home's unique value proposition. The flow of the space, the quality of the light, the neighborhood.
Because there's no number to distract them.
Exactly. The documents note that price is actually the very first thing to suppress buyer interest. Logically, they argue it shouldn't even be addressed until the buyer has already developed a genuine desire to purchase the home.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. If there is no price to anchor these buyers, how does the seller protect themselves from giving the house away?
That's a big fear, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you take away the asking price, you remove the ceiling, meaning buyers can bid it up as high as they want, but don't you also remove the floor?
You would think so, but the system has a built-in seller control and protection mechanism. The safety net doesn't disappear, it just becomes invisible to the market.
Invisible.
Yeah, the seller sets a highly confidential reserve price. This is their absolute walk-away minimum.
So they draw a line in the sand, but the buyers never get to see where the line is.
Yes, and if the bidding during the campaign doesn't reach or exceed that reserve figure, the seller simply chooses not to sell. There is zero risk of a forced liquidation. The seller retains complete control. And furthermore, if the property doesn't hit that magic number under the auction conditions, the strategy doesn't fail.
It doesn't.
No, it just transitions seamlessly into what they designate as a post-auction phase. This is where the agent negotiates one-on-one with the pool of buyers who already demonstrated serious interest during the campaign.
Okay, so removing the price removes the ceiling on value, which is great for the seller. But without a price tag, buyers have all the time in the world to browse. You've solved the value problem, but you've kind of created a procrastination problem.
That's a great point.
How do you force a buyer to get off the fence and actually commit?
And this raises an important question about how we view real estate auctions. To force that commitment, you have to replace the safety of a printed price tag with the intense pressure of a hard deadline.
Because, frankly, when I hear house auction, I still have this ingrained image of someone on a megaphone standing on the overgrown lawn of a foreclosed home.
Right, the guy talking a million miles an hour.
Yeah. It feels like a bottom-fishing, distressed fire sale.
Well, the sources are highly focused on dismantling that exact misconception. These are not distressed sales. They explicitly define these modern real estate auctions as premium repositioning events where the finest homes meet serious buyers.
So it's more like the difference between buying a used car at a police impound lot versus bidding on a vintage Ferrari at Sotheby's.
Spot on. Both are auctions, but the psychology of the buyer and the perceived value of the asset are just worlds apart.
Okay, so how do they build that pressure?
The engine driving this premium repositioning is their signature 16-day selling strategy. They intentionally compress the entire time on the market down to just over 2 weeks.
Wait, 16 days? That's barely enough time to get a for sale sign printed in traditional real estate.
It is intensely compressed by design. By squeezing the timeline, the process manufactures a genuine, visceral fear of loss among the buyers.
Oh, I see.
You're taking away the indefinite availability of the traditional market and replacing it with structured scarcity. The statistics cited in the brochure underscore how effective this is. At the time of publication, 88% of their properties sold either under the hammer or prior to the auction.
Wow.
And 100% sold in under 3 weeks.
That is wild. The guide outlines a highly specific 6-step process for the buyer to navigate this 16-day pressure cooker. It's really worth looking at the mechanics of these steps because each one is clearly designed to incrementally build psychological commitment.
Let's break them down.
Okay, so step 1 is review. This is just attending the open houses, looking at the marketing, chatting with lenders, standard stuff. But step 2 is register. Buyers have to provide identification and proof of funds just to get a bidder number.
And that registration step is a massive psychological threshold. Gathering financial documents and submitting them is a high-friction activity.
For sure.
Once a buyer jumps that hurdle, they are psychologically invested. They've mentally started moving their furniture into the living room.
They aren't just a casual observer anymore. They are a participant. Yeah. Then we hit step 3, which is understand the terms.
Yeah.
The documents really emphasize that these auction offers must be non-contingent and clean.
And this is where we need to define some industry mechanics for context. In a traditional market, buyers use conditional contracts. That means a buyer will offer to purchase a home on the condition that their bank approves the loan.
Right.
Or on the condition that the building inspection is flawless, or even on the condition that they can sell their own house first.
And if any of those conditions aren't met, the buyer can just walk away entirely unscathed.
Exactly, and the seller is left holding the bag. The property goes back on the market, but now it is tainted.
Because the days on market clock has been ticking the whole time.
Yep, and new buyers assume the previous deal fell through because something was wrong with the house. The seller's reserve documents note that in places like California, the standard contracts are written so that almost all the control sits entirely with the buyer.
But with this 16-day option strategy, a non-contingent offer means there are no back doors. You are buying the house as is on that specific day.
Right.
Then step 4 is auction day itself. Step 5 is crossing that confidential reserve price. And step 6 is becoming the successful bidder, where the contract binds immediately. No waiting periods, no renegotiations.
And what's fascinating here is how this intensely compressed, highly structured process actually benefits the buyer just as much as it protects the seller.
You're going to have to explain that because a ticking clock, waving a paddle, and giving up your right to back out sounds incredibly stressful for a buyer.
It does, but it provides something that traditional real estate severely lacks: total transparency.
Transparency.
Yes. For a serious buyer, the traditional market is full of hidden traps. You submit an offer and hear nothing back for 3 days. You don't know who else is bidding.
Oh, that's true.
You don't know if the agent is just using your offer to bait someone else into paying more. You don't even know if the seller is genuinely motivated to sell or just, testing the waters.
You are basically operating in the dark.
Exactly. The auction process brings everything into the light. The brochure really emphasizes the phrase, everyone sees where they stand. Buyers are placed on an equal footing.
They aren't competing against phantom buyers or fake offers?
No, they can look across the room or the digital platform and see exactly who they are bidding against. Furthermore, the process provides complimentary bank valuations and comprehensive building and pest reports right up front during that review stage.
Oh, so they don't need inspection contingencies because the inspection is already done and handed to them on day one.
Precisely.
It creates an environment where the buyer is competing against other buyers rather than constantly negotiating against the seller.
which changes the whole dynamic.
It really does. But this system sounds bulletproof for a fresh, brand new listing. What about the house that has already been sitting for 90 days?
Well, that presents a significant logistical challenge.
Right, because if I am a real estate agent with a stale listing, my seller is furious, the open houses are empty, and I am stressed. If I bring in an outside auction company to fix it, that usually means I have to hand over my commission, admit total defeat, and basically tell my client I failed.
Right.
So how does seller's reserve actually get implemented in the real world without alienating the very real estate agents they need to survive?
This is perhaps the most brilliant part of their entire business model. The document titled Your Listing Hasn't Failed reveals that Seller's Reserve operates strictly as a B2B or business-to-business collaborative partner.
So they're designed to be a lifeline for the listing agent, not a replacement.
Exactly. They aren't swooping in to steal the client.
Not at all.
Not at all. Their messaging to the agent is incredibly empathetic. They basically say, you're not here because you've done something wrong. The property is still worthy. The strategy simply ran its course. They position themselves as a structural shift, a way to help the original agent salvage the relationship and deliver the result.
The logistics of how they structure the deal are what really stood out to me. The original listing agent keeps their full commission. Seller's Reserve charges a separate 1.5% premium, but that premium is paid directly by the seller.
And let's break down the math on that, because it is vital for understanding why a seller would agree to pay an extra fee.
Let's do that.
Imagine a $2 million home that has been sitting on the market. To generate any renewed interest traditionally, an agent might suggest a 5% price drop.
Which is a $100,000 loss for the seller.
Right. Suddenly, paying a 1.5% premium to Seller's Reserve, which is $30,000, looks like a bargain.
Oh, well, yeah. The seller effectively saves $70,000 by investing in a new strategy rather than just slashing the price.
Exactly. And the agent doesn't lose a dime of their commission. Better yet, the agent gets to walk back into their angry client's living room and play the hero.
They get to say, I have brought in an exclusive team with a brand new, aggressive strategy, instead of saying, hey, we need to drop your price again.
And that new strategy is massive. They don't just hand the agent a manual and wish them luck. Seller's Reserve brings an entire in-house creative agency to orchestrate what they call the represent phase.
Yeah, the sources talk about cinematic drone films, architectural twilight photography, and magazine-quality editorial copy. They run highly targeted digital campaigns across Meta and luxury publisher networks.
It's a massive push.
It is a full-scale media blitz designed to completely reintroduce the home to the market.
It's all about changing the market's perception before you change the price. And to ensure the original agent feels completely supported during this pivot, Michael Mahone himself, or one of their expert auctioneers, actually attends that initial pitch meeting with the frustrated seller.
Oh, they do it together.
Yeah, they sit side by side with the agent to lend authority, explain the math, and answer the hard questions. They even provide the agent with 90 minutes of dedicated training to ensure they deeply understand the mechanics of the no asking price strategy and the auction dynamics.
So what does this all mean? When you zoom out and look at all these moving parts, the 16-day pressure cooker, the removal of the price tag, the B2B partnership, the drone shots, it is not just about selling a house.
No, it's not.
It is about orchestrating a complete relaunch.
Yeah.
You're taking an asset that the market has deemed scale, resetting the days on market clock to zero, and essentially manufacturing competition out of thin air.
It is a masterclass in behavioral economics. By removing the price, you remove the buyer's ability to just casually dismiss the asset. By imposing a 16-day deadline, you shift the narrative from why hasn't someone bought this to I have to bid right now or I will lose this. You are systematically changing the environment to change the behavior of the crowd.
Which really makes you look at everything differently. I mean, we started this deep dive talking about that empty restaurant versus the packed one and how time degrades perceived value.
Yep.
We have seen why dropping your price is basically self-sabotage and how combining structured scarcity with high-end storytelling can completely revive a dead asset. And what is so fascinating to me is that this doesn't just apply to luxury real estate.
How do you mean?
Well, think about it. Whether you are pitching a new business idea to investors, launching a product, or even just presenting yourself in a job interview, how you package your timeline and how you force people to focus on your actual value proposition rather than just your quote-unquote price tag dictates your worth in the market.
That is the ultimate takeaway here. The seller's reserve method proves, with empirical data, that an asset's value is not a fixed number. It is entirely dependent on the psychological environment in which it is presented. If simply changing the container from a traditional open-ended listing to a ticking clock auction can save a failing multi-million-dollar real estate deal, it makes you wonder about the other areas of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Where else are you accepting a lower valuation simply because your own days on market have grown stale? And if you could wipe the slate clean, what would your own personal relaunch look like?
A brand new narrative, no asking price, and a ticking clock. Definitely something to think about next time you feel like the market is ignoring what you have to offer. Until next time, keep diving deep.